makes a film a Paul Thomas Anderson film? Well, if you were to simply look at the subject matter on its face, it might seem like he's kind of all over the place. Quirky romance, turn-of-the-century oil tycoon, family melodrama, cult religions,
pig fuck,
and porn.
You got the touch!
He's seemingly willing to tell a story about literally anything. Except he's not.
What the fuck is this?
Because while these films may be about wildly different things on their surface, Anderson is fundamentally preoccupied with several motivating themes, namely familiar relationships, father-son dynamics, and feelings of loneliness and isolation. There Will Be Blood is not just a story about an oil tycoon. It's about a strained father-son relationship and a crazed journey toward isolation.
Bastards from a basket!
The Master is not just a story about a man who joins a cult. It's about a man searching for purpose and meaning in post-war America. Boogie Nights isn't just about a young porn star. It's about a man searching for a loving family to care for him. Anderson's films typically operate on thematic levels far deeper than the stylistic glamour visible on the surface. Sure, Anderson's exhibited a masterful use of tracking shots. Sure, he's been able to utilize elaborate set pieces to spectacular effect. And yeah, in general, his films are gorgeous works of visual art. I mean, just look at that. But to analyze Anderson's work solely on his visual aesthetic is to, again, ignore another important factor that has made him one of the premier directors of his generation. He understands the importance of sound, and knows how to use it in tandem with imagery, themes, and narratives to create films that operate spectacularly at every level.
To understand the importance that Anderson places on the sound in each of his films, it might help to listen to John Bryan, composer of both Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love, talk about one of the auditory quirks of Anderson's filmmaking process.
He said, yeah, I found that when I'm doing long tracking shots, I often have like headphones, and he'd put on a piece of music when he'd set up a shot. Because even if the music wasn't going to be there in the end, it helped give a sense of rhythm. It helped give a sense of sort of poetic pacing.
In listening to Bryan describe this process, we're able to better understand the level of meticulous detail that Anderson puts in the creation of every aspect of his film. Therefore, when examining the scores of his films, we can begin to read the images directly in relation to the auditory cues being given and understand their intimate partnership with one another. Bryan, in a separate interview, later said of Anderson's workflow, "We talked about the music before he even officially had a script. We each had our own ideas in our heads months before he started shooting anything. So when the finished product of a film like Punch Drunk Love is released, the audio and visuals work in perfect harmony to emphasize the various emotional states that Barry exists in throughout the film. Whether it be a particularly anxious and stressful situation, or the happier, peaceful moments found in Barry's relationship with Lena." In the score of There Will Be Blood, composed by Johnny Greenwood of the rock group Radiohead, we witness similar attention to detail and mirrored reflections of the score in the on-screen content. While the film deservedly won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, without the audio cues from the minimalist score tying the work together, the film would not pack nearly the emotional resonance. In this picture, we again witness Anderson's careful intentionality behind the overall sound design of the film, particularly in relation to emphasizing themes and building dramatic tension. In this early scene of Daniel Plainview's speech to the townspeople, Anderson is careful to intentionally frame the character alone, while still acknowledging the sounds of the restless crowd to which Plainview is speaking.
When it comes to the showdown, they won't be there.
From the very start, we understand that Daniel does not exist as a part of the societies in which he interacts, as he's visually isolated while the audio roots the scene amidst an outside world. Later on, Anderson exhibits another understanding of the power of sound, allowing the film's final scene to play out under the tension of absolute silence.
I'm finished.
However, his film's scores are not the only moments in which Anderson displays his acute auditory sensibilities. Much like spiritual predecessors in Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino, Anderson has consistently demonstrated a masterful use of popular music soundtracks to establish tones and complement narratives beautifully. While the director himself insists, quote, that some movies get stuck a little bit too much in trying to make the music in the movie very literal, or sort of thematically linking to the scene that's happening, end quote. Anderson's own films often seem to run contrary to this dismissal of intentional music use. For instance, while he has stated that lyrical similarities between the songs used in Boogie Nights and the narrative are happy coincidences, one needs to only look at the use of Melanie's Brand New Key in relation to Roller Girl, or Hot Chocolates in the introduction of Scotty to Dirk, to understand Anderson's keen awareness of the power of lyrical symmetry.
As another example of Anderson's acute awareness, one can look at the lyrical symbolism present in each popular song used in The Master, with lyrics scattered throughout that directly provide insight into the mindset of the film's characters and open up an avenue to read through the complicated narrative being presented visually. In this scene, we see Freddie Quell leave Dodd and the Cause as the song No Other Love by Joe Stafford begins to play. Cutting from Dodd and the desert, we turn to Freddie's hometown as he approaches the door of his former sweetheart, Doris. Stafford's lyrics sing, No other love can warm my heart, now that I've known the comfort of your arms, slyly signifying that Freddie, though separated from Doris for a long period of time, has maintained his attachment to her. As his conversation with Doris's mother begins, however, the music slowly starts to fade. Freddie learns of Doris's marriage and her subsequent unattainability. The song ends as Doris's mother says,
That you said that you'd come back sometime. Is that right?
Doris at one point had the same feelings for Freddie, but in his prolonged absence, she inevitably moved on. The song ends as Freddie also comes to the realization that he, too, must move on.
And to a certain extent, it could be called that, but it was really this line, this first line of her song, Deathly, and it goes, now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing me again? And that was the start of it all, just thinking, that's good, I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to write a movie.
Magnolia, perhaps Anderson's most openly ambitious film, provides another example for the extreme intentionality behind his soundtracking choices. Writing the film in tandem with recording artist Amy Mann, no moment in Anderson's entire filmography represents his keen awareness of how to craft sound and music as pivotal within his narratives than the famous Wise Up sequence in his 1999 epic. Having already followed the immense cast through their journeys in the film's first two acts, Anderson turns to one of the bolder artistic choices in his career, centering the pivot point into the third act through a surprising musical rendition of Mann's Wise Up, performed by each character in solitude. While the early parts of the film are careful in establishing the traumas and pressures faced by each character, in this scene, all caught in between their choice to make proactive change in their lives, or accept their fates, the characters begin to sing along with lyrics specifically written for the film. Individual characters croon specific lines in this sequence, with Claudia singing, You Got What You Want, and You Can Hardly Stand It, in reference to her potentially healthy and beneficial relationship with Officer Jim Curring, while Stanley Spector ends the montage with, So Just Give Up, a line that directly resonates with Stanley's struggle to constantly live up to the expectations of his father and society as a whole. In this scene, Anderson demonstrates brilliant acuity in regards to his use of popular music and lyrics, blending the audio and visuals seamlessly into the narrative, and using every aspect of filmmaking to emphasize his themes of loneliness, isolation, and the struggle to find acceptance in family.
So let me just pop in this 8-track, and you just give a listen and tell me what you think, okay? Woo! Huh! You hear that? You hear the bass, right? You hear it, it kicks, it turns, it curls up your belly, makes you want to freaky deaky, right? You got that? That's it.
In all, Anderson's films are works that embrace the entirety of the filmmaking process, demonstrating his mastery of the visual while also paying close attention to the world of sound. Whether through his carefully collaborative scores created with dynamic composers, his meticulous sound design, or his clearly intentional popular music choices, it is clear that Paul Thomas Anderson works to make every detail culminate in a true work of art.